Hello and welcome back to this episode of your Kingsport blog video update. I'm Jeff Fleming, City Manager of the City of Kingsport. And I'd like to give you an update on what's been going on at the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. At the meeting on August 18th, the board approved some amendments to last year's budget. They have to August 31st to make amendments to the budget that ended, the budget ended June 30th of 2015. We had a fantastic year. We budgeted very conservatively and our revenues came in more than we expected. So we went back and looked at the prioritized unfunded budget needs and made decisions on what we could fund and what would have to wait another year. We decided that $300,000 to $500,000 would go into the rainy day fund, the general fund. That had been a fund that since 2011, the board had chosen to dip into that fund for paving and some other things, and we got dinged by Moody's bond rating saying, hey, your rainy day fund, you're taking money out of it every year to balance your budget. That's not a good practice. So since I became city manager on June 27th of 2014, that gives me the responsibility to close out the FY14, to plan for FY15, and then now we've just budgeted for FY16. So while I've only been doing this for a year, our team has had responsibility for 3 consecutive budgets. So for those 3 consecutive budgets, we got the message from Moody's and we made the necessary adjustments so that the rainy day fund has increased for those 3 consecutive years. So they took off our negative outlook because our fund balance has been moved back into a positive trajectory. Now, it's not anywhere near where it ultimately needs to be to go to the next level of Moody's bond rating, but we have made progress and we have a very, very solid rating, which is the same as our neighboring cities in Johnson City and Bristol, Tennessee. So if you don't do anything with the excess revenue over expenditures, all of it goes back into your rainy day fund. We chose to appropriate $300,000 to $500,000. We won't know the final amount until the books are closed out a little later, but we know it'll be no less than $300,000 and it could be as high as $500,000. So that's why there's a range there as opposed to a specific number. Of the remaining $1.145 million, we decided to put $200,000 in the regional sales tax fund balance. We decided to put $345,000 into the employee health insurance. That, coupled with some changes that were made to our accounting procedures, will actually allow $800,000 to go back into our employee health insurance reserve funds, and that will prevent us from having to make some drastic changes to the health insurance that we thought we were going to have to make a little earlier this year. So, I hope you understand what I'm saying. If you over project your revenues and then you fall short, it doesn't solve anything. It makes it maybe an easier budget process where you just adjust your revenue to make it work, but we were realistic and then turns out that we had a better year than we expected. So now we go back and take that cash and put it for the right purposes. Also, $105,000 for facilities maintenance. That's been a very high priority of our board. $105,000 for technology infrastructure. One of the biggest projects in that funding is going to be finally solving the high-speed connectivity issues to Bays Mountain. We've heard horror stories of people standing in line with a credit card at Bays Mountain trying to pay, and it just won't process fast enough. And as we all know how frustrating that is and how bad that is for customer service. So once and for all, we're going to be able to resolve that issue. $100,000 to replace 4 fire department cardiac monitors. We replace as many of those as we can when we can. So this will purchase 4 at $25,000 each, so $100,000. $75,000 to hire a power franchise consultant. We are in the process of working with AEP to renew our franchise with them for a short term, and we would like to bring on a power franchise consultant to analyze our long-term options. We may choose to stay with AEP, or we could go with another power provider, or we could municipalize and provide the service ourselves. But we would like for a professional to come in and make that analysis for us and give us some advice. $67,500 for streetlight installation in Colonial Heights. $52,000 to add a maintenance building at Domtar Park. That has been something that's been complained about frequently by the users of Domtar Park. The master plan for that park called for this building, but we never got around to funding it, didn't build it. So we have temporary storage buildings and piles of gravel and things that you need to maintain ball fields that's just kind of laying around under the interstate bridge. So this will finally give us a chance to clean that up and present our park a little better to our customers. $50,000 for website upgrades and PR office furniture. We're in the process of hiring a marketing and public relations person, and we are moving all the employees out of the basement. That's been an ongoing theme for the past year. So we're having to rearrange and make some space on the first floor, move some employees out to the V.O. Dobbins Center, and make some changes. So this will allow us to make that change. Also, it provides funding for a website upgrade that is desperately needed. We haven't done that in some time, and we are at risk for our website crashing at any time because we just simply have not kept up with the software that's needed to run a modern website. $26,500 toward a police seized vehicle storage facility. The police have been nomads with this service. They were in the 123 Cherokee building, which is the former traffic building on Cherokee Street, just across from the new dog barking lot. We sold that building to Bellafina Chocolates, so the police had to move. So they moved to Conner Rock Road, the part of the old pet dairy that we purchased. Then we sold that tract to TEC Industrial, so they're going to have to move from that tract. So they just need a place to put their seized vehicle storage. Now, those vehicles have to be held until the court case is cleared, and once it has cleared, they are sold, and the money goes back into the drug fund, is what we call it, and that helps buy needed equipment for the police department. Just as a curiosity, if you're ever interested in browsing what's available from the Kingsport Police Department and many other police departments and government fleets from across the country, you can go to govdeals.com. That's govdeals.com, govdeals.com, and you can bid on vehicles from across the country. $18,500 for a fire department facilities study. We built 2 new fire stations, and I guess that kind of brought to our attention that the other fire stations really needed some help. And we really didn't have a clear plan on how to attack or address that. So we felt it prudent to bring in a professional to take a look at the facilities and then give us a prioritized list so that when budget season rolls around, we can plan multi-years out into the future and not just be reactionary and trying to patch things. There were also some transfers included from existing projects that had nothing to do with the excess revenue over expenditures, but that was $10,000 for the environmental for the Greenbelt East extension. We are making plans to extend the Greenbelt from its current terminus out toward Cleek Road, which is the next road down the back entry, if you will, up to Preston Woods and Orbank Road. There will also be a spur that connects the Greenbelt to the little shopping center there with Aldi and East Coast Wings. They've already got their sidewalk completed and ready to connect, so all we have to do is connect to them. That'll be a few years out in the future, but we are making our plans now. And during the annual spring budget presentation, the city plans its work, and so the board at the time discusses what they want to do from a project's point of view for the next year. And then in the fall, we work that plan. We go to the bond market, we borrow the money, and we start the projects. Now, in election years, that means that one board plans the projects, and then potentially a whole nother board inherits those projects and decides whether to carry them forward or not. And that is what happened this year. We did have a significant turnover in the board, and so we nothing was really changed about what was planned. So we did continue to move forward just like we had planned before. This year, the city plans to roll off more debt than it brings on. So $3.778500 is the proposed new general fund debts. That's $3,778,500 is what we're proposing to borrow, but we are paying off $7 million. In water fund, we plan to borrow $1.73 million, but we plan to roll off $2.4 million. And in sewer fund, we plan to borrow $4.9 million and roll off $5 million. So in every fund, sewer just barely, but in every fund, we are paying off more than we are borrowing. And so it was important for us to do that for at least 1 year. And then in a couple more years, we will really start to synchronize with our revenues and our expenditures, and we'll be able to ramp up and do some more projects going into the future without adversely impacting our tax rate. The approved new projects and initiatives that are included in this proposed bond issue, $4.9 million to continue our sewer installation in Colonial Heights. That's to meet our annexation obligations, which, by the way, we've never missed one, so we don't intend to start doing that now. $1.73 million for water master plan upgrades. And it's important, I always remind the board that the water system is not just the city limits. So, you can't talk about taxpayers when you talk about water, you talk about ratepayers. And we consider all ratepayers equal and treat them equally, whether you're a city resident or not. We're in the business of providing great customer service for our water system, and so $1.73 million goes toward that. $1.5 million toward a new landfill cell. That's not a real exciting initiative, but it's certainly one that is absolutely necessary, and when it rolls around, you really don't have any choice but to do it. So this will be hopefully a once in 20 year purchase, but we did have to get that done this year. $544,000 to improve the public street near Hampton Inn. There is a proposed development that is being designed as we speak. They're waiting for financing and funding. We wanted to be ready in case they become ready, so we budgeted $544,000 to improve that. It's called Enterprise Place, the street right beside Hampton Inn. We'd bring it up to public standards, add curbs and gutters, sidewalks, water and sewer lines, and just make it a nice, normal public street. $350,000 to school facilities maintenance and improvements, and also $350,000 to city facilities maintenance and improvements. And we never really can keep up with all the needs that we have. So when we do have an opportunity to I guess, make a good swipe at it, we sure appreciate that opportunity. So I know our facilities guys are excited. They've been asking for funding for years to work on the various things they need to do, none of which are high profile and none of which are going to be probably even written up in the newspaper. But it's just critically important to maintain our facilities, and so we're taking the opportunity to do that. $298,000 to the multi-year plan to improve the library. The overall project cost is $12 million to completely build the new library as planned. That's just not possible with our current budget for several years. So what we agreed to do was to provide small starts. We had an architect take the master plan, break it up into bite-sized pieces, if you will, and provide funding 1 year at a time to implement those improvements and do it in a thoughtful way that won't be undone when we eventually do get to build our new library. $250,000 to finalize the engineering department's move down to downtown Kingsport. They are currently located at the intersection of Fort Henry Drive and Eastman Road. And for some time now, we have been working on the building on Shelby Street, which is directly behind the Kingsport Improvement Building, which faces Market Street and hosts all of our city development, building, planning, and Public Works administrative functions. This will allow them to all be together 1 block from City Hall, and so a developer won't have to run all over town to see who they need to see. We also budgeted $170,000 to match the state grant for the Greenbelt East extension that I described a few minutes ago. $100,000 to provide equipment for the fire ladder truck. $60,000 to provide a generator for Fire Station 5. $89,000 for technology improvements and infrastructure. That's in addition to the $105,000 I mentioned a moment ago. So we made a pretty good lick this year toward technology, which we just haven't done in a while. And $67,500 toward Greenbelt resurfacing and improvements. The Greenbelt in many parts is well over 20 years old now, and we just simply haven't budgeted for maintenance and paving as we should. So we're taking the opportunity to put a little bit of money toward that, and hopefully it'll go a long way. So we'll see how that goes. Also approved on the consent agenda, $9,000 arts grant for programming at the Carousel and Farmers Market. We hired Barge Wagner, Sumner and Cannon to provide design services for Centennial Park. That will allow them to lay out the park, and create an actual cost estimate so that we can begin the fundraising aspect. The city's already put $348,000 into that, and we're hoping the private sector puts at least that much and more. And then this design will allow us to expand the park as funding becomes available from the private side, and it'll give a roadmap for how to get there. We hired a sole source agency to provide corrosion control at Old Mill and Hemlock lift stations at Fall Creek. The sewer line that comes from the airport, it has to cross several ridges and valleys, so it has to be pumped over the ridge, and then it collects in a pump station in the valley, and then it's pumped over the next ridge to the next valley. And each time it has to be pumped, it sits in those pump stations, and it starts the anaerobic process, which is corrosive to the materials. So we're hoping to address that before it becomes a large issue, and just basically stay on top of the infrastructure maintenance there. We acquired a parcel on Cypress Street. It's a little parcel in the corner of Cypress Street. It's unbuildable, and we're going to install a stormwater filtration system. We are requiring these now on new commercial developments so that water that runs off of parking lots collects and gets filtered out before it goes into our stormwater system. So it keeps bottles and cans, and cigarette butts, and anything that might wash across the surface from entering our stormwater system and blocking it. And that it's an accessible and cleanable, but it's contained system. So you probably don't notice them, but they're on most of the new developments. I know there's the new Wendy's on Stone Drive has them, and anything that has come around in recent years, and they have a maintenance contract. You won't see them; they're under the parking lot, kind of like a manhole, and but it does help protect the environment and protect our stormwater. In this case, that Cypress Street location will collect all of the runoff from the Fort Henry Mall parking lot. So that'll be a very large paved surface that will protect the integrity of our stormwater system, and then also Mad Branch. We condemned 2 properties in Colonial Heights for sewer project, and you might think that doesn't sound very significant, but hundreds of properties were acquired in Rock Springs and Colonial Heights to provide sewer service, and these are the only 2 that we had to condemn. So I think that speaks volumes to the work that our property acquisition agent, Rochelle Trent, does. And it's just she's an unsung hero and doesn't get enough credit, but she meets with each individual property owner many times under adverse conditions. They're upset, you're intruding on their property, and she always has a successful outcome in most cases, but 2 people didn't agree, so I think she did a great job. And finally, we purchased 2 buses and 2 vans for the Kingsport Area Transit System at $450,000 total, but only $38,250 of that is local money. So we continue to grow the CAT system and try to expand it for our citizens. That's your not so quick update today, but it was a pretty significant meeting, and I do appreciate you taking time to watch. Thank you very much.